My class is actually downloading the data into some ArcGIS software, and we're making some comparisons between what kind of solar energy do we have versus what's the speed doing to see if there's a tilt on the solar panels. Can we find some patterns in the temperature versus the altitude? But not only that, because I'm an integrated teacher with, there's a history teacher, she can look at a map like this right here, and we can start talking about why are there different rules and regulations over different countries. We get into the civics of it. We get into why is Yemen blacked out? Why is North Korea blacked out? What's going on in these different countries that make different laws that seem like it's just a radio. One balloon and my virtual learning is set.
I got a chance to fly through Hurricane Florence with the United States Air Force. Florence was a Category 4 hurricane that made landfall in 2018.
But the Air Force isn't the only one who flies through these giant storms. NOAA does also to gather vital information.
The job of a hurricane hunter is not for the faint at heart. These brave men and women must fly straight into one of the most destructive forces in nature. Hurricanes are born over the open ocean, and while satellites can track their movement, meteorologists and researchers need to sample the storms directly to get the most accurate information about them. NOAA's Hurricane Hunter fleet includes 2 P-3 turboprop aircraft, as well as a Gulfstream 4 jet. The P-3s fly through the storm, encountering devastating winds that can be over 150 miles per hour. The jet can fly higher than the turboprops, gathering data from the upper atmosphere. Both planes have high-tech equipment on board to get the job done, like radar and fixed probes that measure particles in the air. Scientists also deploy drop wind sondes, which parachute down through the hurricane to the ocean surface, sending back data on pressure, temperature, humidity, and wind. These measurements can help us understand the structure of a storm and the winds that are steering it. The data is used in computer models that help forecasters predict how intense the hurricane will be and where and when it will strike land. Hurricane hunters take a literal look into the eye of a monster formed by nature. Their courage helps further science, which saves lives.
We've been talking about remote sensing. Now it's time for a remote interview.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey guys, how's it going? Nice to see you.
Can you tell us, first of all, how are drones used to assess tornado damage?
We have one of those quadcopters, so a smaller drone. We get some aerial shots and some videos so that we can really understand the magnitude of the tornado damage. Then we have another drone, which is a fixed wing with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities that we use to map the area and do some analysis to really tease out some of the tornado damage. For the quadcopter, we're basically manually flying that using an app. When it comes to the fixed wing, we actually plan the mission out. In the software, we'll draw a polygon around the area of our interest. I want 70 to 75% overlap so that I can get 3D modeling capabilities. Once we set up that mission, it's uploaded and sent to the drone. So then when we actually fly the fixed wing, we're really pressing a few buttons. It takes off and it goes and it does its mission.
How do you use the data once it's collected?
So with our fixed wing, we're actually collecting 2 types of data. So we're collecting visible imagery and we're also collecting multispectral imagery. So we have 2 cameras. Vegetation will emit energy in near infrared bands. So in this portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can't see. So the nice thing about using a multispectral camera is that it allows us to assess damage to vegetation that we would not be able to see in that visible portion. We have to process this data. So when we go out and we fly, one mission can collect thousands of individual images at a place. We use software to be able to then stitch and line up all this imagery so that we have one continuous image that we can then look at and see a complete picture of tornado damage
Why is this information so important?
We need to validate the tornado warnings, but we also need to understand the high wind impacts on the ground. So what areas were impacted, what the potential intensity was of the tornado. Because when we actually go out and survey these areas, the damage surveys are a way for us to help better understand what the tornadic intensity was.
Thanks so much for talking with us.
Adults aren't the only ones who can program and fly drones.
Our friends at Stonehill Middle School programmed their own drones, and let me tell you, they blew us away.
Just as NOAA scientists program drones to fly specific patterns over tornado damage, the students at Stonehill Middle School were challenged to program drones to fly specific missions. Their task was to program drones to fly a series of aerial maneuvers. But we didn't stop there. Students also had to sync their drones' movements to their own musical compositions that they also created with code. Their drones had to do flips, spins, fly in formations of up to 4 drones at a time. Each drone was programmed to follow a unique set of instructions using the students' code. Just like engineers, the students had to test their programs, fail and learn from those failures, reflect on their work, and then regroup to fix mistakes and start that process all over again until their drones were ready to do what they wanted them to. The final air shows were pretty impressive. These skills the students showed by being able to program drones to fly to a specific location for a specific task directly relate to the processes used by NOAA to assess tornado damage. Who knows? In a few years, maybe some of these students will be working for NOAA and collecting important information about
That was awesome! Data validation is a big, kind of scary term. And you might be thinking, what does that have to do with me?
But it has a lot to do with you, and it's got real-world implications.
Validating data is making sure that the quality and accuracy of the data is correct before you use it.
Kind of like checking your math before you turn in a test.
Hi, I'm Tom Jones, a planetary scientist and veteran astronaut. I've got my PhD from the University of Arizona in remote sensing of asteroids, looking for water on the surfaces of asteroids out between Mars and Jupiter. And then I've been able to employ that same training in orbital missions, looking at our changing planet through the Space Radar Lab missions in particular. I flew 4 times on the space shuttle back during the 1990s and 2000s, 53 days in space overall with a trip to help build the International Space Station. The other 3 missions were science missions, and in particular, 2 of them were really interesting to me as a planetary scientist. I got to study our planet from space using an advanced radar camera, map the changing surface of the Earth. We took our space shuttle, Endeavour, with the radar inside the cargo bay here. We rolled it over to face the surface of the Earth, as you see here on my backdrop, and we scanned the surface of the Earth with a radar beam, listened to the echoes coming back to the shuttle's cargo bay, and transformed those radar echoes into digital images. It used 3 different colors, wavelengths of 3 centimeters wide, 6 centimeters wide, and 23 centimeters across. And by using those 3 different wavelengths or colors of radar light, we could light up the Earth's surface below, listen to the echoes coming back, and the computers aboard Endeavour could combine those radar echoes into digital images of the planet. We could look at everything from how much carbon is in the forests that we see below us on the Earth. We could look for pollution in the oceans. We could map earthquake faults and watch erupting volcanoes. It's a very versatile instrument that can study almost every aspect of Earth science. And we're still studying those images 25 years later. So ground truth is the idea that you must prove that your observations from space are accurate by going to the site on the ground that you're looking at and collecting the detailed information about that site to see what the truth is on the ground so that you can correct or make more accurate the radar imagery that you're recording in space. And if we could prove by ground truth that our space observations were accurate, Then we can take data all around the planet where we don't have investigators on the ground. And by using that extension, we can get accurate data all over the surface of the Earth. But data validation isn't just something that scientists do, it's something students do as well.
You may not realize it, but you work with data all the time. From seeing what the temperature is to working the math problem at school. Validating data can be as simple as making sure the forecast you are looking at is for where you live, or checking your work to make sure your answer on a math problem makes sense. If you're doing a simple addition problem and you get a really large number, your data might not be valid. Checking your work or validating your data can be an important step to success in school, and in dressing appropriately to play outside.
The next time you check the weather to see if you need to wear a jacket,
Or check the prediction on severe weather, you can thank remote sensing and the work that the people at NOAA do.
have you used remote sensing in your life? Let us know down in the comments section.
And if you like this video, be sure to follow STEM in 30 on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the National Air and Space Museum's YouTube channel.
Thanks for watching.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
This is
Got about 2 minutes.
okay, great.
Tom, are you all set?
I'm almost ready.
Okay.
I think I left my pen in there.
Oh, okay. That pen's gonna go back.
Give him his pen back. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, you could.
Tom.
The same as you. Yes, I am ready now.
Okay, stand by. 5, 4,
Thank you.
3.
Welcome to the Select Board meeting of May 6th, 2024. This is Select Board Chair Tom Lacusa. I'll be confirming that all members are present and people on the agenda are present and can hear me. So when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Josh Levine?
Yes.
Vineet Hamavathy?
Here.
Mark Gold?
Here.
Dan Zwerko?
Here.
And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons?
Here.
Mike Barbieri?
Here.
This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar, is posted on the agenda in the town's website, identifying how the public may join. There's no chat or Q&A function. All the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The The public is encouraged to follow along with the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending this meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comment section of the meeting, and I'll call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some of the attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Nobody? Okay. We'll now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a few announcements. The annual town meeting is set for Tuesday, May 14th, and today's the 7th, right?
6th.
Today's the 6th, so a little more than a week. And it will be at 7 p.m. in the Long Meadow High School gym. To view the warrant for additional information and resources, please visit www.longmeadowma.gov/townmeeting. The annual town election is set for June 11th, 2024, which is Tuesday, and it'll be at the Long Meadow Community House, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Voter registration deadline, if you are not already registered to vote in town, is June 3rd, 2024. To view a sample ballot and find more information, please visit www.longmeadowma.gov/elections. Design workshop for the Cooley Brook. The town will host a public presentation and discussion tomorrow, Tuesday, May 7th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Community House, 735 Long Meadow Street, to review the design concepts and collect feedback on how well they capture the community's vision of what changes need to be made. This comes as part of a 3-day workshop that encourages community members to participate in the planning process of restoring the brook and making improvements to the Bliss and Laurel Parks. More information can be found on the town website at www.longmeadowma.gov/civic-alerts. And resident comments. Do we have any resident comments tonight? Any folks? No? Anybody online?
Not seeing anyone on the Zoom.
Okay. Well, the last meeting we have enough resident comments for maybe 5 to 6 meetings. So hopefully things with that situation resolved itself. How about select board comments? Do we have any members? We'll go Josh. We haven't heard from him in a while, and then we'll go.
Yeah, so just to give an update from the middle school building committee, we met last week and did a couple things. I know Lynn's going to touch on this in her town manager report, but narrowed down, essentially down to 3 choices, which will be the 3 choices going in that we're going to get designs and price out. That's a renovation and code update on Glenbrook, a brand new school at Williams, or a renovation and addition at Williams. And there's a lot more information. We got a good packet from JWA last week, and so folks can take a look at that. It was also an informative meeting talking about how the pricing would work out, and I think that's something that I mentioned at the meeting and maybe on people's minds. To me, not being in construction at all, I thought a renovation and a code update or an addition at Williams, or renovation and addition, so not doing a full new build, would be cheaper options. When it comes down to it, they're not necessarily. A renovation and code update, we wouldn't get a lot of reimbursement from the state, so even though it looks cheaper, we may have to pick up a bigger part of that tab because the school would still be undersized. Like, we wouldn't be able to fix the science rooms, for instance. So we would get no budget for that. And then a renovation and add-on at Williams to, you would think that if we keep some existing part of the building, it would be a lot cheaper, but probably not because, and this is where the construction vagaries I don't understand them, but if you're trying to retrofit an old building to bring it up to new standards, it's very difficult and would cost a lot. So if you look at it, end of the day, doing a brand new school out of those three options is probably the cheapest, and obviously we'd get a lot more control over what would come out. So there's still, we're still pricing that out. So that is just a preliminary amount that we were looking at, but everyone should take a look at the packet that was on the agenda last week. It was very helpful, I thought, and even had some very preliminary site designs for what Williams could look like with the new school. So I'd encourage everyone to go take a look at that.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is I participated by Zoom, the Hazardous Mitigation Plan Public Forum, I think beside the committee. I was probably the only one on it, which is unfortunate. There was a great summary, though, in the reminder, and I'd urge people in town to read it. It will impact all the residents of town, and it was a lot of work done by the group in DPW and Corinne Micey Munns and a few other people to put together that hazardous mitigation plan. And so people ought to look at it. And I should also, obviously, our fire chief, who's the head of that group, too. I did attend another Pioneer Valley Planning Commission planning meeting, and for the first time in a while, nothing has slipped anymore. So our road renovations are still where we last knew they were, which is this north end, the so-called Long Meadow L, is on schedule for what they call fiscal year 2025, which is after October 1st. But the south end of town is anybody's guess, and it's going to remain that way. The state is also putting their federal money, and they've announced that, and I think we've all seen it in some of the things we've gotten to, significant push on bridge repairs, and so could be that, you know, flat roads on regular pavements may slip a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. There was a meeting in the Energy Committee, and I just want to, and Lynn, I don't know if you want to mention this or not, but they're following up on the municipal aggregation plan, and so people at home need to understand what this is. That the Energy Committee, and I was in on this, did some preliminary interviews of potential, they're called consolidators or aggregators, actually, I think they're called. These are consultants who would work for the town to put together a municipal aggregation plan. And we narrowed it down to a couple of people and then turned it over to Lynn and Corinne and said, you know, it's a coin flip between these two. And Corinne interviewed them, and she said she agreed. It was kind of pretty much of a coin flip, and so I think the Energy Committee has been charged with getting any public input. So people who are interested at all in finding out how this works and what it's all about, I urge them to go to the Energy Committee meeting. I think the meeting is next. It's the end of this week. I'm sorry, but it's on the website, and I suspect that from that they will come back to the select board with a recommended aggregator. For the select board, I hope I'm not stepping on their toes, but the cost of the town is nothing. They all get paid based on a formula set by the state. It's the same formula. And so what you're really looking at is who's got a fancier website or who's got a better negotiation to get better rates. And, you know, the two groups that it's down to both have great track records, deal with a lot of communities already in Massachusetts. And personally, I don't think we can go wrong either one, but in essence, stay tuned, because I think that's going to probably come, I would hope, at our next meeting or something like that. It's got some real good opportunities for people in town.
Great, thanks, Mark. Yes.
Thanks. I just wanted to make a couple comments. One, I had attended the Pete Landon memorial event on Sunday. I know there are a few of us at that event as well, and I just want to say thank you to Lynn. I thought you did a great job. Tom as well. I think you represented the town very well. Nice remarks. Andrew Berkey, chair of the Parks and Rec Committee. And I was talking to Andrew after, and one of the things we were talking about was, Pete Landon was a guy who this memorial and plaque could have been placed at 10 other places in town. He just a really good guy, gave a lot back to the community, and I think one of the things we see a lot is, we might have a couple residents who might reach out to us on a regular basis, but Pete Landon was someone who brought solutions to trying to solve problems, and I think that's something that we can appreciate. So I thought it was a really good event. Also, the paper shredding event too. I wanted to thank Arlene Miller, Liz Bone, the recycling committee for putting on that event. I know there were some challenges in terms of just a lot of people being around with the jamboree in town, but I think everyone worked together to really make that a good event. And also, Mark, I wanted to thank you for volunteering at that event. I appreciate it. The other, and while I'm on the topic of the lacrosse jamborees in town, I went to both weeks. I had a lot of positive feedback from the community on these events, and I serve on the long range planning committee, and I see Patrick in the back who also serves on it. And one of the things we hear a lot about is having more community involvement and more community events where people can come together. And if you were at these events, you could see the hundreds of Longmeadow parents as well as young athletes that were having the opportunity to have a great weekend and also spend money downtown, if we have one, I guess, down at the shops. Actually, Starbucks ran out of coffee, and that's with having coffee. That's even with having Poor Things coffee present. So just a great event for the town. I hope we do more of these events. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the Cooley Brook workshop that I just got back from at the community house. So I think this is a good opportunity for tomorrow night for everyone to show up. And Tom, you mentioned something about the fishing derby. It brings me back in the day when I was at the derby. But so everyone, please attend the events. Make comments, suggestions, and just that's really all that I wanted to add. But again, thank you, everyone.
Okay, great. Beneath.
Did you want to?
Oh, yeah, if you don't mind, if I just,
go ahead.
I forgot to mention the Jamboree, and I agree with everything Dan said. It was a really great event. I went to my daughter played in it, and it was really fun to see people. And I remember when I don't remember which Jamboree we had in front of us. We were talking about why isn't it Wolf Swamp, and judging by the number of people that were there, I can see why Mr. St. Clair said it can't be a Wolf Swamp. They just don't have the parking. It was absolutely packed. So I know that closing Bliss may inconvenience a bit, but I think it overall, the benefit to the town is absolutely worth it. So, and to everyone who organized both events, thank you. It was great.
Yeah, so I'm just going to piggyback off of a couple of things that were said. So Mark was talking about the municipal aggregation. The Energy and Sustainability Committee is having their meeting on May 9th to get public input on it, and their plan is to come before the Select Board at our next meeting to talk about it. The two consultants that they've narrowed it down to are Good Energy and Mass Power. So if folks are interested, attend the meeting on May 9th. The Pete Landon Memorial yesterday, I want to also thank Tom and Lynn. You guys did a great job of representing the town of Longmeadow. Also want to thank the Landon family. They gave some great speeches and shared some great stories. And I think Dan and I were talking to Andrew Berkey after the event, who's the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, and we were just talking about how important it is to take time to do things like this, like put together a memorial and be able to share stories of people in town. And it's a way for us to build community and for us to remember our history, and whether it's something like honoring someone who just left us, like Pete Landon, or having the Johnny Appleseed book release and talking about somebody else that used to live here. These things are just so important, and you can see kind of the way that folks engage with it and come out and respond to it, that it is really important to our community. Yesterday the weather was not great, and we had a lot of folks there, from all parts of town. So that was great to see. And then also the Lacrosse Jamboree, I want to thank Bill St. Clair, Melissa Shetler, Top Tier Lacrosse, everyone else that put those two events together. They were great events, and similarly, talking to families in Long Meadow that attended, they absolutely loved it, especially folks that were on the boys' side, where we haven't traditionally had it here in a few years. From their experience for what their tournaments were like before to being able to have it in town and having that set up, they were all just absolutely thrilled with it. And also, coaches and parents from other towns too were very complimentary of how everything was run and everything went. And also the businesses in the shops. I mean, I think I stopped in at Posto and they were saying that they could not believe how much business they had. And I think some of the waiters were even talking about how they were sad that they weren't on the schedule for next Saturday for the girls' event because business had been so good. So all in all, just two great events, and just proud to see the town turn out in that way.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just to jump on some of this stuff, when the idea of having the jamboree, by the high school in the center of town, by the shops, I knew this is going to be a home run, and I'm glad that it's picked up steam, and it'll probably continue to move forward. So that's great. As far as the Peter Landon event, it was really the first time that I had been out of my car at those fields since they've been finished, and it's pretty spectacular. If you get a chance to go by there. And of course, Pete, put a lot of time. He talked to Barry quite a bit about how to best plan fields and so forth. And when I think about the time on the board, the fields, the adult center, which Pete also helped to connect with some of the folks that Mary Beth did the fundraising, but he made the connections with the Blakes. And then, the DPW, those are three things that, and as I look back at my time involved with the select board, those are pretty significant things that we did that everybody's happy about. And, the buildings, we got, again, the interest rates were so low then, it was just great. So the other thing is, there was a select board association meeting for people in rural towns, and Linda and I were at that event last Saturday, and there was some interesting things that came up. There's some legislation that is looking at trying to get some additional funding for land that's in a town that is really not developable, not developable. So you look at state parks, you look at our Fanny Stebbins and the national property that's down by the river, and they talked about for, I think it was the town of Worthington, they said they get about $187,000 from the state for having that park in their town, and then they said that in Plymouth, they have a park in Plymouth, they get 1.2 million. And so, of course, people in Western Mass are saying, what's the formula with this? How do they get 1.2 million for a park there versus the Western Mass? So that's one thing that we may hear more about, because we do have some land that could qualify us. The other thing is they talk a lot about housing and the housing crisis, and it's a big focus for the governor. And so as we look at our town, we have some options. And there is a zoning for congregate residential housing for seniors, for elderly, and I'm hoping that can happen, that we can find some places. I know that there's a 4-acre parcel that's in walking distance to the senior center that may come up for sale. And, that would be a great opportunity for the town. And then also, I know folks are looking at what will happen with the middle schools for housing. And again, my thing with housing for seniors in town who want to downsize would still be to try to have condominiums so they could transfer their money into a property that then they could sell at some point later in their life if they need additional money and so forth. So, they talked about putting out RFPs for developers, and so, hopefully that's something we can think about, because housing is, again, there's a lot of folks who want to work in town and can't find housing, but if we had seniors move into, sort of a congregate housing, that it would free up homes for other folks who, work in the area or work in the town, can move in. And, the housing prices have gone up, but we do have a lot of smaller homes in town that are hopefully maybe people can be affordable. Okay, and the town manager's report for May 6th?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So first up on the report is a topic that I bring back every now and then as I have updates, the pool work and lifeguard situation. So work to open both pools is moving ahead quickly. The Park and Recreation Department began the process to seek a waiver of the lifeguard age requirement to increase the number of potential applicants. The process involves an application to the local Board of Health and then approval by the State Department of Public Health to allow 15-year-olds to work as lifeguards. I'm pleased to say that the waiver has been approved. This is going to offer us another tool for fully staffing the pools. And then regarding the mechanical and electrical work at Bliss Pool, the bid had gone back out. We saw a decent amount of interest at the pre-bid conference, and we did receive 2 bids. The procurement manager is working through the contract process, and we expect to be able to move ahead on that work very soon. Greenwood Pool is currently being readied for reopening as well, with the standard opening procedures beginning. Some grant news regarding the casino mitigation grant. I'm pleased to say that the recent casino mitigation grant application submitted by the town was approved. While the money's technically earmarked for Long Meadow, we still need to apply for eligible uses. The assistant town manager, DPW, police, and fire all played roles in obtaining this funding. The total grant award is $324,800, and in our grant application, we broke it into 2 areas, transportation and public safety. Through the grant award, we're funding Phase 3 of the traffic camera project for Dwight Road at William Street, Shaker Road at Maple Road, Washington Road at Maple Road, and Long Meadow Street at Bliss Road, and Long Meadow Street at South Road and Booth Street. This will install all the fiber optic cable from Maple Road to the state line and the intersection of Long Meadow Street at Bliss Road. The grant also covers fire rescue equipment, including highway and stabilization kits, CPR compression device, a combination tool, and a cardiac monitor. This will also relieve some funding requests from the ambulance fund in the FY25 capital improvement plan. And the list goes on with a lot of other fire rescue equipment that I didn't itemize here in this report. And then one of the ones that I think I'm most happy about is the transportation related request. We were successful in receiving funding to amend the speed table at William Street and Grassy Gutter. So all this work is going to be moving ahead very soon. And regarding the recycling center, I'm aware that there's been considerable public conversation regarding the recycling center hours. Many people had assumed that the center would open on Wednesday, April 3rd and begin with Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday hours like in years past. The information that was put out by the DPW was that the recycling center would open in April with no solid dates. The issue around full reopening relates to staff. Last season, we had a significant staff issue, which necessitated other members of the DPW to be forced to work overtime to keep the recycling center open. This depleted the overtime budget for the department. Over the winter, we evaluated staffing options and waited for the wage and classification study to finish. With the budget constraints and the inability to hire a sustainability coordinator who is planned to be responsible for administrative functions of recycling, we decided to continue with the status quo and post for the part-time recycling attendant positions. The positions were posted, interviews were held, 2 candidates have been hired and are in the process of onboarding. We need 1 more person to reach full staffing level, but we anticipate to be able to open soon, full schedule soon, which would at this point just be the addition of Sunday. It's open on Wednesdays and Saturdays right now. An update on the bid protest for the L water main project and sewer work. At the conclusion of the bid at the conclusion of the bid process for the town's water and sewer replacement work related to the L project, we were subject to a bid protest. The lowest bidder, who we disqualified, protested our disqualification to the Attorney General's office. While the bid protest was pending with the Attorney General's office, we were unable to move forward with the project. After a hearing in late March, we received a decision last week that the Attorney General's office rejected the bid protest. So we're now moving forward with the contract to the second low bidder. As a reminder, this work needs to be completed in advance of the L project, which is being funded through the Transportation Improvement Program. Looking ahead for our FY25 goal setting, I wanted to gauge the board's interest in holding a select board retreat to spend a day or a half day focused on goal setting and other topics. I envision this taking place after the new select board is seated. I've spoken with a facilitator who came highly recommended from another community. The facilitator has extensive experience working with Massachusetts municipalities on this topic. So what I would ask is, I'm just going to present this here to you tonight, just in this town manager report, and have you think about it, and then I'd bring it back at the next meeting just for more conversation and hopefully some direction. And then, as Josh had mentioned in select board comments, an update on the middle school building project. We reached a milestone actually about an hour or two ago with the submission of the preliminary design proposal, or program, I'm sorry, preliminary design program. So last week, Wednesday, May 1st, the building committee hit this milestone by approving the preliminary design program submission to the Mass School Building Authority. The submission to MSBA includes a full evaluation of existing conditions at Glenbrook and Williams, a report on recent educational visioning activities, an assessment of existing and needed programmatic space, and a comprehensive education plan. Most importantly, the submission includes a summary of preliminary design options. The slide deck from the May 1st presentation is linked in my report, and its information is also regularly available on the middle school building project website, which is linked right off the town's main page. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks. Yes, Josh.
How does that, is a retreat in open meeting law? Do we post
Yes,
it? Okay.
Yes. You post it and you respectfully ask that members of the public and press either do not attend or are respectful of the conversation that happens, so that we can have some sort of informal dialogue without fear of it being on a front page of a newspaper.
Do we stream? So we don't stream it, I suppose.
Right.
The last one we did at Bay Path. Tom,
Yeah, we did it with Bernie Lynch. I think we did it at Bay Path, yeah. And it went pretty well. Is that the individual they recommended, or?
No.
No, okay, all right, because he did a nice job. But, yeah, I think it should be a 5-day, no, I'm just kidding.
Hawaii.
No, but,
We'll have everyone sending emails.
well, the thing is, if you add that retreat to all the other things that select board members do, it has to show up when they look at, compensation. We've talked about compensation for every job in town, except the select board. And now that I'm leaving, I can speak out about it. What people always complain about is, oh, here's this person, they're asking for a raise for the job they're in. So I am not going to be in this job. But I think that, as we look through, I guess I could ask the town manager, how did it slip by that the select board wasn't evaluated to see if they should be earning extra money compared to other towns?
So normally, compensation for elected officials is handled through your charter, and it would be covered in your charter review process.
Yeah.
So you're not on the town's pay scale.
Okay.
You're not part of our wage and classification plan. So it's generally, you would have something in your charter requiring every 5 to 10 years wages for elected officials be annually or be reviewed on some sort of schedule, 5, 10 years. And there's usually a process spelled out in your charter. I don't believe we have anything in our charter, so I'm imagining your stipends are set by bylaw.
No, they're just set
Just in the
at
budget.
the annual town meeting.
Just in the budget?
Because I know
So
the
where did
annual-
the dollar amount come from at some point?
Somebody picked it once 50 years ago, and it's
Would have been the 1700s.
and it's just continued
It
through.
was probably a good
That's
paying
just
job
for
then.
inflation.
Because I know a few years ago, people maybe remember town meeting, somebody stood up and said, I think the town moderator should get a raise.
Yeah.
And they voted her a raise.
1,000% raise, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Maybe Tom can do that in the fall.
Yes, not this meeting, I can't do it this one.
I mentioned when I was leaving as chair, I think the chair should get paid more, because there's extra work. But
Well, too bad you didn't say that in town meeting last year. No, you couldn't. But that is something to be. Any other questions about the,
I had one quick question
Sure.
on the recycling center. So,
The school committee doesn't get paid.
yeah,
so Lynn, right now it's Wednesday and Saturday, the recycling center. Is that what you were saying? But
Yes.
What was the note we got today from Lisa? I saw an email today from Lisa that said they've now got full staff.
I don't think it went to everyone.
So Lynn, is there a possibility that we could, and I don't know if this is favorable or not, but I'm just thinking there'd probably be more interest to have the recycling center on Saturday and Sunday, but I don't know if that poses issues with staff.
Yes.
And that's probably the
That's why
reason,
it's
right?
been
Okay.
Wednesday.
So there was an email, and I apologize, it went to Erwin Pers, who's the head of the recycling committee, and it says, it's from Lisa Oxen, who's the business manager at UPW. I'm happy to report the recycle center will be going back to normal 3 days and hours starting Wednesday. So this Wednesday. So, and she just goes on that they've gotten their full staffing people. So she's updated the hours on the web page. So this Wednesday, apparently it's going back to full time.
Well, I know that last meeting, I mentioned that, and one of my neighbors applied for a job, got a job there. So I hope people are listening, so if we have any other staff meeting needs, we should mention them in our meetings. The other thing is, of course, the mitigation for the casino. I have my MGM water here, because I did go there and listen to some music, and so we thank MGM for not forgetting us. All right, the next thing is we need a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th.
So moved.
A second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? No? All those in favor? All right. Now, the Long Meadow Community Television Agreement is on the agenda, but due to state filings, LCTV has requested we postpone this agenda topic until May 20th. So we'll do that. The next thing is, can you continue the discussion about the shade tree regulations? So this is, we met at our last time. We looked at the first draft of the public shade tree regulations, and the board made some comments for suggestions and revisions. And, there's an updated version of the regulations that were on the agenda tonight. Leah Grigoff, the tree warden, is here tonight, along with members of the tree committee, to answer additional questions on the proposed regulations. And so, I don't know if we should start with Leah, if you have any comments in addition to what we heard last time.
Hi. I think I wrapped it up for the most part pretty well in the executive summary that I had submitted. Most of the comments I'd received at your last meeting in April seemed, fairly kind of more like, changing some of the language around, keeping content the same, but making it a little bit more clear, spelling out some words like right of way rather than leaving it as ROW. The main question that was kind of left open-ended last we spoke was regarding, the conflict of there being, the right-of-way pruning that's required under the town's general bylaw. I think that was, chapter 259, article 3, requiring residents to maintain 7 feet of clearance. So I had met with the building commissioner, Paul Healy, Sean, and Corinne, and we all kind of sat down and talked about good ways to kind of move forward with that. So that way there's consistency. The proposal that we all agreed on and felt would be appropriately manageable in terms of workload was keeping the language as is in the proposed regulations before you, and then at fall town meeting proposing to amend the general bylaw to reflect that management is for privately owned shrubs and trees that are encroaching onto town right of way. And then in that interim period between if and when these regulations get adopted, and then if and when the bylaw revision is made, that period that it would exist between now and then, I'll work with the zoning and code enforcers to make sure that if we run into these situations, we can take them case by case. The building commissioner didn't feel that they were frequent scenarios that his department runs into. We're not going in there laying the hammer down, making, being firm on violations regarding this. It's a new process, it's a learning process. And so we just want to make sure that there's understanding of this process, and, it's certainly stuff that I can handle for the most part. Anything really within 7 feet height, I can manage or tackle, and if I can't, I can get someone out there, a tree contractor out there. I've done this already in a couple occasions. It's primarily linden trees that I've seen. They sprout out like crazy. They grow low branches. It's their genetics. So, people have contacted me and said, can you come clip it back? And I've got, I'm happy to go out and do that. I think that's within my, jurisdiction as tree warden to go do that for them. So, like I said, there really isn't too terribly much that they see on their end for that. There isn't too many times that I've seen that on my end. So I think personally that it's the best way to go forward, and that's, the group kind of landed on that, and I'm happy to hear other revisions, or if you have any comments regarding that proposed option for the pruning.
Okay, thanks, Leah. I just one thing, on section 6, number 4, I still, as I read this, I think I have to have a lawyer to understand that it's going to be more than $500. It says any violation should be punishable by forfeiture of not more than $500. I just think after that, we really need to say, plus see the paragraph below, or something, or additional charges to the town, plus, I don't know, I just think something has to be there, because they can read that, and then they're stuck on that, and then all the rest of it, we talk about, 2.5 times the amount of the inches of the diameters of trees that were cut down, but I don't think the average person reading this would think that's going to cost them more than $500. And I brought that up last time, and I don't see the problem with adding something like plus see paragraph below, or.
I got a question.
Yeah, I can work with Corinne and see if there's a better way to kind of wordsmith that section. I moved around. So instead of making the sentence start with "in addition," we kind of moved that around, but I didn't, I can work with her and see if maybe there's a better way that we can have that be more clear.
Yeah, just because most people are going to just see that, and they're going to stop and say, well, and we had someone here who said, well, then I'll just charge me $500. If I'm building a $800,000 house, what do I care about $500 if I can have my driveway exactly where I want it? And forget the trees. I like I said when we had the tree hearing, trees are not like telephone poles that you just pluck them out. So
yeah, I have a note on my copy. How can we? I don't understand how we can go above $500. Have we run this by Jay?
Yes, this went before town council, and I had reached out to a couple of other tree wardens, the one in Brookline and the one in Northampton, and had asked because I had also read the section in Mass General Law 87 where it mentioned fines and establishing fines, and the way it was explained to me was you can establish fines in your own regulations in the same way that, for example, Conservation Commission can write a bylaw and establish fines under that bylaw, which are in addition to what's required under the state act. So that's how it was explained to me.
I just, to me, just the plain reading of the statutes, if we did bring a fine against someone and tried to collect on a large amount, I don't see how they would certainly point to that. I would be curious to hear what town council has to say, how that is possible. And I know that I'm sure there can be, but we heard from our town council that there's not much case law on this because it doesn't come up much. And obviously, it's a very old statute if it only had $500. So I'm curious about that. And then I was at the last meeting, and Leah, this is great. I want to thank everyone who worked on it. I think it's really important. We saw this year, we love dog hearings, and now we love tree hearings, and this will probably bring us more of them. But I'd much rather have a basis for what we're going to do in place. So I think this is fantastic, and I thank you for all your hard work in the tree committee. This is great. I had a quick note on the draft warrant article. If we're going to be changing it, and we're talking about trees, we might as well change shrubbery, 25931 shrubbery to shrubbery and trees, if that's what we're covering. But my bigger question was if we're allowing sidewalk clearance up to 7 feet. So up to 7 feet could be anything. So if we want at least 7 feet, we should say that, or if we want exactly 7 feet, we should say that. Up to includes 6 and includes 5. I hope we can be clear on that. And then my other question, the 2.5 times amount of the DBH that we're looking at, I guess it's unauthorized. I just want to make sure that could be a huge amount of money. If we're for that, then that's fine. But I guess we're not springing it on people, so they'll know that it's an issue, and that's the point. So maybe I just convinced myself. And then I had one more question on the waiver. The waiver for the removal, that's only if you're repairing or replacing a building. It's not, you can't grant waivers otherwise. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, not necessarily just buildings, but I would include utilities in that. It's similar language from the Wetlands Protection Act, where it's if something's already lawfully existing. So if somebody needed to, redo their sewer line and have it completely taken out and replaced, they would be allowed to go through that process. They still would likely need to go through a tree hearing, I would assume, but would then be able to be waived of any kind of mitigation, because this doesn't, it's not like somebody's just trying to go in and improve a vista view or something like installing, we're seeing a lot of installing solar panels, the new structures like that wouldn't be exempt, but things like utilities, overhead wires, houses, patios, sidewalks. So maintaining, replacing, but not, if they were to expand or go into the right of way to expand a driveway, for example, the expanded part of the driveway would not be exempt from the waiver.
Okay, that was really my question. So the waiver, you can't just grant it willy-nilly. Not you, but if we have like a tyrant tree warden who comes in and says, I hate trees, they can't grant waivers based on this. It's very specific. So I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the good news is that, all these years, we haven't had any hearings, tree hearings. So, Leah, you did a great job, I thought, with the last one. And our prior tree warden must have been doing their job appropriately, and the tree committee. Is there anything the folks on the tree committee would like to add? Could you want to step up and do you have any comments? Yeah.
It's okay, Kathy?
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
So I was here for the last meeting as well.
If you could just introduce yourself again.
I'm sorry?
Just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lou Cornett, relatively new member of the tree committee. I was here last time, and Mark was talking about the difficulty of sometimes interpreting some of the rules and regulations by the average homeowner. And I spoke with Corinne and Leah about this. There is a frequently asked question section that's part of this on the website.
Okay.
And it kind of deals with taking things out of the legal framework and answering some of those questions in a little more detail and a little bit easier to understand language. So to me, that's important. I'm asked those. I've only been on the committee for a little while, and I'm already getting questions from residents about this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
So that's an important part, I think, that we are looking at, is just making sure that we have the regulations and they're legally enforceable and solid regulations, but at the same time, we have an ability to communicate the kind of problems that people have, such as, is this a town tree or my tree? So we're working hard on that as well.
Yeah, well, it's really important to have residents involved in this process, you know, to help us make sure that we're not getting too far out of whack with how we approach things. You know, one of the things that came up, you know, is the differences in trees, you know, that there are some trees that were taken down, and, you know, the maples seem to fall more likely than oaks. And do you guys talk at all about that in your committee, about the differences in terms of trying to determine which trees should be protected?
I'll let Leah take that in more depth, but the meetings I've been to, and as a volunteer, I attended most of the meetings in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's certainly a topic on the table about what trees we should plant where, which ones have, you know, survived the test of time, power lines, various things, and sometimes trees are very fashionable, and in fashion, I should say, but the test of time says they don't work well in our community. Leah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can say that primarily when I do tree inspections and I have to do a removal that, you know, is a high risk of, you know, high risk of consequence. Typically the Norway maples and the sugar maples are, you know, it's likely gonna be one or the other. The Norways, which we do not plant, they're on the Massachusetts no plant list, they're an invasive species, but, you know, when they start to fail, they go fast, and tend to be brittle and crack. The sugar maples, not only do they not handle road salt, and so of course we have a lot of those up on Home Meadow Street. You tend to see them down, you know, William Street, some of these busier roads. They go fast as well because of the road salt, but they also are, you know, showing that they don't handle climate change very well. We're starting to lose their temperature range that they like to live in. So they're moving further and further north. So between warmer temperatures, increased road salts, things like that, you know, the sugar maples, they just aren't standing to the test of time. But we also, and a big thing that I wanted to include in these regulations was the, you know, really trying to emphasize right tree, right place. You know, we all have our biases. I have trees that I love, and I have trees I see around town that I absolutely can't stand. But it's not my job to take down trees I don't like. It's to take down the ones that are higher risk. And so I wanted to make sure, you know, for any future tree warden, if we were to run into somebody who maybe have those biases, you know, it's really in there that, you know, once a tree is kind of at 30% or higher in around town, to try and limit the planting of that as much as possible. So we have much higher than 30% maples in Longmeadow, so they really aren't ones that I like to plant. You know, sometimes people will say, can I put this in if they're requesting to plant themselves, and I'll offer alternatives that might be similar, you know, similar fall colors or similar in the broad leaf shape aspect. But, you know, I just really think we got to take that turn towards right tree, right place, because that's how we're going to have the species that last longer and really increase the survivability of the saplings and the smaller trees, the newer trees that we're planting. Is, you know, setting them up.
Okay. And Leah, would we have to put that in writing, or is that something anyone with a forestry background would feel like that's what we should do?
Regarding the 30%?
Yeah.
I believe that is in the regulations. It's not firm because I don't quite know how intensively we can enforce that. Let me see if I can find tree planting. Oh boy. Tree selection factors that the tree were, so I'm on page 7. It's the 4th paragraph in section, Part B, Section 1. The tree warden shall keep species diversity to a maximum of 30% dominance to the maximum extent practicable.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mark Gold.
Yeah, I don't have any question. I think it's a great job. The one, I guess, conclusion I've made from this is that, you know, without a policy like this, and I hesitate to say this, but we've kind of left the pruning of tree belt trees to residents because we haven't put a lot of money into it. If we're gonna start enforcing, not allowing residents to trim the tree belt trees, it may come down to us needing to spend more money for the town to trim the trees because we're likely to get the calls when people realize, yeah, I can't do that anymore. And it's just something to be aware of. It's part of our overall budgeting process potentially.
Yeah. Yes, Dan.
Agree with everyone's comments. Again, appreciate everyone on the tree committee as well. All your input, Leah as well. One of the things I'm thinking, because also on the agenda tonight, we've done some of these inserts for utility bills, and I feel like this is a really good opportunity, once this is set in stone, to put this in a utility bill insert so residents understand the changes that have been made. And to Mark's point, we actually have a policy now that's going to be in place soon. So I think that could help solve some of the issues with residents, maybe with some of the questions they might have, and just kind of wild west, just cutting things down. So maybe that's something that the tree committee wants to take a look at in the future for submitting that request.
And I've done that for other towns on the wetland side of things, where we went and we made a tri-fold type thing and handed those to local realtors and people who might be selling near wetlands, for example. That explains our bylaw and how the wetlands are protected, and local wetlands contractors. So I think, if the tree committee would be interested in taking this on and working with me on it, maybe doing something similar, but targeting, potentially realtors and also local landscaping companies as well. Because I know sometimes if they're out there and they're mowing and the resident asks for a trim, they might unknowingly go ahead and trim, and we'll want to avoid that as much as we can.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Thank you. It's great to know that there is a place on the website that for frequently asked questions, so people can always go to that.
What's the time frame for adopting this now?
Well, if we have to get some revisions, if we have to do a couple of revisions.
Is this something we're going to target for the next meeting, or?
Well, we could either do that, or if we
asking.
feel that, do you want to see what the town council has to say exactly about the?
I am curious. I don't wanna...
I'm not saying do it now. I'm just wondering what the time frame is.
Yeah, so then we could bring it up in the next meeting.
That's fine.
If that's all that's holding us up. So, all right, great. Thank you, Leah. All right, so that's our tree policy. My computer's not happy for some reason, but I'll make it through. Okay, the next thing is the town meeting Article 5. Okay, we all received a memo from Lynn, it was attached to the agenda, and she sent us an email also regarding Article 5 and some changes, which are good changes, because the curriculum that they're discussing is going to cost less money, but now we just have to figure out how we work it out on the floor. So, Lynn.
Thanks. If you wouldn't mind, I'll read the memo just so the public has some understanding of what this discussion is. So, Article 5 on the upcoming annual town meeting warrant is to fund a new elementary literacy curriculum. As you may know, LPS initiated a review of the elementary literacy curriculum in the 2022-23 school year and activated a formal curriculum review, pilot, and adoption process in October of 23. Originally, a review and pilot committee planned to make a final recommendation to the school committee at the end of May 2024. However, this group met on Thursday, May 2nd, and recommended an option that will cost less than the requested $495,000 curriculum. That was just a placeholder at the time. The curriculum being recommended to the school committee is quoted to cost $270,509.64, leaving $224,490.36 available in the FY25 budget. The school committee has scheduled a special meeting for Tuesday, May 7th to discuss and vote on this recommendation, so that's tomorrow night. Assuming a positive vote by the school committee on Tuesday, it's anticipated that a school committee member will make a motion to amend Article 5 on the floor of town meeting to reduce the funding amount. Should Article 5 pass as amended, this will leave FY 2025 funds available for another use. I'll lay out a few considerations that I would like to discuss with you. The first of which is the state's FY 2025 budget is still being debated. There could be changes to the state aid numbers that could positively or negatively affect the town's budget, lowering or increasing revenue projections. We won't know until the state's budget is passed. The amount of Article 12, raise and appropriate, could increase to more closely fully fund the wage and classification study implementation. Option 3, the funding source of Article 13 could be changed from available funds in the Treasury to raise and appropriate. The balance of the funds could remain unallocated, and we could reevaluate once the state budget has passed. See item number 1 for why. And the fourth option would be replace the funding that has been cut for OPEB and/or capital. This option requires a lot more discussion and movement of warrant articles at the town meeting. My recommendation is to move forward with number 3, and then I would ask for a vote of the select board, and then we would prepare a motion to amend to be read by a select board member for Article 13 at the town meeting.
Okay. First question is, in terms of the state budget, is this a variable that happens, because I know we usually set everything up for town meeting, and then, but this is...
Yes, we do it based on our best projections, the state aid numbers we get, but then it makes its way through the House, through the Senate, through the governor, and just with the precarious revenue estimates lately, we're not feeling very positive that our state aid number is going to stay where it is. Okay. It's less than it was last year. It was a 1.14% increase, and it could be reduced further. I don't feel confident that it would be increased, at least where we are right now.
Okay, great. Mark?
Yeah, Tom, I think you may not have been at the meeting. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that the state aid is not going to be what we put in the budget.
Okay.
It's either more or less. And in the past, we've kind of lived with the difference. And if it's more, it's great, it turns into free cash. If it's less, you scramble and have to do a budget change. And my suggestion at the time was and it was part of what was in Article 5 and a few other things, was because we deferred, if you recall, we deferred the fire truck funding, we deferred some other capital projects, was that we wait until the fall town meeting and have, if you will, budget true-up, which would be based on the actual state aid.
Okay.
This would add another $224,000 plus or minus based on that. And the more I think about it, and the more that this has occurred, I think the more, I would advise that we do that, because we really ought to be adjusting our budget in the fall and setting a tax rate based on an actual budget and not based on an estimated budget. So, I mean, we've never gotten what we projected to get, but we've never adjusted the budget either.
Okay. Now, Mike, as I thought about this, one of the things that we didn't discuss this year that we had been discussing pretty frequently, and in the past quite a bit, is the taxes going up 2.5%. And, we had recommendations from the Finance Committee to never put it at 2.5, to keep it below that, because we were going to, hit the ceiling and it was going to break through. And we didn't hear anything about that this year.
Well, the reason was because the tax ceiling, which was 4 years out, is now 11 or 12 years out.
Yeah.
And so, and also because in order to get a balanced budget, we used, the town had to use the full 2.5%.
Right.
Clearly, there's nothing wrong with coming in less than 2.5%. But again, a lot go back to, a lot depends on the state aid. And so we have to, no matter what we do now at this Springtown meeting, that's not what the state's going to give us. And so we ought to take a look at it. We've got OPEB unfunded. We've got the capital project for some security cameras. We've got the fire truck. We have a couple other things that we pulled money out of, and we got to address it. We've got to address those things, and I don't know that we can address them now because we don't have money to do it. So I just say, let's stick with what we got and plan is to fix it in the fall, really go in the fall when we know what the budget's gonna be.
Okay, any other comments about these 4 options?
Yeah.
Anybody feel strongly?
So Lynn, can you explain a bit more, but the effect on the budget and what will happen in the fall, option 3 versus just letting us true up in the fall?
Sure. So option 3, doing it right now, takes that funding from free cash that we're using and uses the operating budget instead. So as we go to build out FY26 budget, it's not as much of a gap that we're trying to make up because we had already filled that gap with operating funds. Option number 4, and I guess I would add some hybrid between those two. We could do as Mark is suggesting by kind of taking a wait and see approach, continuing with Article 13 as it is, use free cash. They're not gonna spend all of that money July 1st or even August. So we could continue to reassess the budget situation. By the time we get to fall town meeting, we'll know what the state aid numbers are really gonna look like. And we could decide at that point, we wanna put some of that into fire operating, and then they would stop using free cash. That would then turn back over for the end of FY25. It's really just 6 in one, half dozen of the other to some extent.
Now, I apologize if I said option 4, I didn't mean that. I meant.
No, you said 3.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
Well, 3 is the fire one.
Oh, yeah, no, I
And
wasn't
then
comparing 3 or
was-
4. I don't think option 4 is good. I'm glad you brought it up. I don't think that's what we need to do
Okay.
because we don't need to do that now, so.
Yeah. So the one thing to point out though with option 3 is the money that's left, the difference of the literacy money versus the $495 that we had budgeted, it will leave us like $25,000 roughly. The fire department line is $196, I think, if I remember right.
166.
So that's even better than what I was thinking. So there would still be significant funds that would remain kind of unallocated that we could wait and see what happens in the fall too. Although, who knows? That might be enough and that might not even be close.
That's what I'm worried about, yeah. I mean, that 60 grand is good to play with, but we, I was at an event, I was talking to a state senator from a different district, and he said, yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah.
And that's what that makes me nervous. And I just, the 2 years I've been on the board, the 2 other budgets, we were blessed when the state aid came in, and I'm a little nervous when we're the opposite of that. And so, you guys have been in the golden age with me. It's going to be interesting what happens here. And so I do like the idea of keeping flexibility, and which we already did a bit. We kicked some things down the road with the intention of funding them. But yeah, I'd like to, I think keeping as much flexibility as we can with the idea that it can be allocated in the fall, if I'm understanding correctly, Lynn. I think that's a good way to do it.
Okay, and Lynn, you had something to add?
Yeah, I don't want to cause alarm either. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. And we face this every single year. We're just calling it out right now. And this is actually a good problem to have. We have money that we could use towards this problem. But I also want to point out, if we do get into a dire situation like that, there are other options besides what we're going to use this money for. That you do hiring freezes, you do things that you don't normally want to do, but that happens if we do face a substantial cut like that.
Mark?
I think my personal opinion is leaving things as they are gives us maximum flexibility. And in fact, November, by the time we get it implemented, so maybe we're 5 months into the new fiscal year, we won't have used all of that money, and we could make that change. I just think, given what gyrations the state's going through, the maximum flexibility we can leave ourselves gives us a lot better leeway than backing ourselves into a corner right now. So that's my opinion.
Okay. So Lynn, let's just make this clear. So there's going to be a motion from the school committee, to make an amendment on Article 5, and then we could make a change to Article 13, or no?
We could.
Yeah. You can do nothing. You can leave it alone. And
Okay.
just Article 5 will change. That's the only change that would happen.
Okay.
If I wanted to be transparent in letting you know there were other options if you wanted to use that money a different way. And those options don't go away. You just will have to wait till fall town meeting to exercise them.
Okay, so we
That's the
don't need to
flexibility.
plug those numbers into another article and on the floor of the town meeting.
You don't have to do it this meeting. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of what was gonna happen so that if you sat there and questioned, where's this other 224 gonna go? Wanted to make sure we had this conversation before town meeting so that if you did want to make an adjustment at spring town meeting, you could do that.
Okay, so besides the numbers on Article 5 changing, will it change any of the other numbers in the?
Not as it sits right now.
Okay.
Well, we can't change the warrant at this point anyway, so it'd have to be on the floor.
Right.
Right.
So, Lynn, if we, and I'm just trying to think all this through, so if we do, say, change 13, that helps you, the budget will have less of a gap for operating for next year.
To make up, yep.
Do you think that is worth taking away some flexibility in the fall, depending on how the state budget comes in?
I think it will help, but it's too hard to say.
Remember, Josh, it may only have a 1/3 of impact, because in the fall, we may choose to make this change then, and
Yeah.
we're still gonna move 2/3 of it, so
Right.
it's even less than
Yeah.
that.
I'm curious what the other Golden Boys think.
Golden Boys.
Hey, it's been all good for us.
No, I think that we amend, or have school committee amend Article 5 if the vote passes tomorrow, and leave the warrant as is. I think just, I'm also for retaining flexibility, and it seems like the option to amend Article 13 to make it closer to our operating budget, the pros of doing that just aren't necessarily there to take away the potential flexibility that we could have, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just say, we don't know what the state funding is going to look like. Probably isn't good. Gives us a bit of a buffer going into the fall. So I mean, I like the option that Lynn brought forward. But while I'm here, we might as well ask Ian as well. Did we miss anything, or is there any? Are you in agreement as well?
I'm in agreement, yeah. I think flexibility is important nowadays, especially when the budget's been as tight as it has been this year. I think if anything, we want to extend as much as possible in order to make sure that next year the issues that could pop up aren't as difficult.
All right, great. And again, for those viewers at home, just remembering back, that the school department did a great job of keeping their budget to 3%, and then this, a little bit of an add-on, and the town has done a great job of covering everything. So so this will just help us, and I guess I'm in agreement with everybody else. We'll just wait and see what happens tomorrow night with the school department, and then, we won't have to make any changes. All right.
And if I could just give a boots on the ground update, we still need this to pass, and we're assuming it will. But my kids have just finished the 2 options for the literacy program, and they loved them both, and both of them were a massive improvement. And it's really important that these do go through. We had an old system that, from what I've heard from the school committee and my friends, the teachers, it was outdated, and it's really important. But this is a great program, and it's very important that we get it through.
Yes, Mark.
To Josh's comment, the Finance Committee recommended against the passage of Article 5. The Finance Committee sometimes holds a lot of sway at town meeting, and sometimes they don't. But they made that recommendation based on $475,000. And so the question is, should we ask the Finance Committee, who was considering meeting before the town meeting, to go in and evaluate what they might think were the number to be $270,000 instead of $475,000, because that could be important to have them speak differently. And I think unless somebody asks them to review this, especially if tomorrow night the school committee adopts this, I think that's important. I don't know whose position it is to go ask the Finance Committee, but maybe it's Ian's, I don't know. But I just wanted to point that out because it's a big deal.
Well, I agree. I think it's fair. It's the only, they voted on one thing and it's changed. If it changes tomorrow, it would be fair to give them another crack at it, and before they get at town meeting.
Yeah, and the Finance Committee vote was very close. It was 4-3 to not recommend it. And I know that most of the conversation amongst the folks that voted to not recommend it was about the process, and so I don't know how the dollar amount might change their conversation on it, but it is a conversation they should have, because I do think close to $500,000 is a lot different than something in the 200,000s.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I think even last year with the ADA playground vote, they initially voted to not recommend the ADA playgrounds, and I think they met maybe just like minutes before town meeting and switched their recommendation. So it's definitely possible for them to meet again and do that.
Yeah, I just had a question on the process. Can they vote knowing that amendment's coming? Can they meet, or do they have to look at the warrant?
Well, they already did vote on the warrant. I think they can do anything they want to, I think, and remember that if there's no amendment on the floor of the meeting, they won't have to say anything. But based on what we expect to be a vote by the school committee tomorrow, that's a pretty good indication that there's going to be an amendment brought before the town meeting,
Right.
Josh.
Yeah,
And so I think that would be the basis by us going to them and saying, you want to take another look at it. I don't know.
And could they meet on the?
They do that all the time.
Yeah.
They meet 10 minutes before the town meeting.
Yeah, I was wondering if they could do that, or meet on the floor even.
They can make an additional recommendation on the floor of town meeting.
Can they vote then?
No, they would have to vote prior
Okay, they
to
would
it.
have to vote prior, okay.
But for instance, the warrant was printed as not recommended, but if information changed, then they can vote on a new recommendation.
Okay, yeah, I think I think we should try. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Great, so I'm taking that as a consensus that you'd like Ian to reach out to the Finance Committee to.
Just let them know what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, we don't appoint the Finance Committee, but.
Understood.
But, they ought to know that there's because up until today, we didn't even, at least I didn't know that this was coming.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to the next item. And, we have a memo attached to our agenda from the Adult Center Director, Jim Layden, on a request to increase the Council of Aging revolving account limit. And, they want to increase it $250,000 for the remainder of 2024. The most recent vote of the Select Board to approve this increase was last June, which is for fiscal year '23. Town meeting approved the revolving account at $150 for fiscal year '24, which is $150,000. This is why this request is coming forward to the board tonight. The Finance Committee also approved this request at their previous meeting, and the town meeting warrant for fiscal year 2025 has a revolving account set at $250,000. So to reflect necessary increases moving forward. And so they're just looking for this to make it through the rest of this fiscal year, right? Glenn?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, Ian?
That's correct, yeah.
So we would need a motion to,
Now, I'll move we authorize an increase in the Council on Aging's revolving account, an increase to $250,000.
Second.
okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay.
I mean, people at home should know that this represents, if they do one or two additional trips, they're bringing in more money. And, it's not like a change in their budget. It's more turnover in programming, so it just means they're more successful.
Mhm. Good, thank you. So now the quarterly investment report. Town Treasurer Collector Erica Brunel is in attendance to present the quarterly investment report for the previous quarter. And the report and supporting information is also included on tonight's agenda. And here's Erica.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to submit my quarterly report for the status of the town's cash and investments for the period ending March 31st, 2024. As per the investment policy, the town held no long-term investments that exceeded the 5-year limit. The individual bank balances were under the $20 million balance provision. All banks received the highest safety rating of green from Veribank, and all accounts are fully insured or secured. The third quarter of fiscal year 2024 has been very stable with interest rates, with one notable increase from Newburyport Savings Bank, which saw an increase from 4.5% to 5.10%. The treasurer and assistant treasurer are closely monitoring interest rates and moving funds to the appropriate accounts that will optimize investments and create the best returns. The last quarter, Veribank reported a yellow rating for Newburyport Savings Bank, and I'm pleased to share that Newburyport Savings Bank returned to a green rating this quarter. The OPEB Pension Reserve Fund experienced a gain in quarterly interest. The quarter ended with a net increase of $249,310, and the March 31st balance in the fund is approximately $7.9 million. The Treasurer's Office will continue to seek the best possible interest rates and diversify funds appropriately to maximize potential investments while being in compliance with Massachusetts state laws and regulations. We will also continue to closely monitor all accounts to ensure the safety and security of all investments. Anyone have any questions?
Yes, Mark Gold has a question.
Yeah, Erica, thanks. I have nothing particular. It's more philosophical or operational. And, you know, what we hear is that the Fed is threatening to lower interest rates, and they held off a little bit. And if you look at the interest rates we have money invested on it's pretty wide range. And I guess the question is, you know, does the Treasurer's Office look at the potential of lower interest rates, and do we have the opportunity to try to get longer term, you know, investments to lock in these interest rates beyond what the Fed may be doing to try to cut rates? I know they didn't cut rates this time, and they may not even cut them the next time, but you know, that's everybody's goal. So the question is what are we doing to try to lock in interest rates at the highest we can for as long as we can?
So I reach out to a lot of our bank representatives pretty regularly just to keep in the loop of what the current rates are. And I have representatives that will reach out to me via email pretty continuously, just letting me know if they have any specials that come out. As far as the CDs, it's a balancing act of just making sure we have the liquidity in the funds as well as trying to take advantage of those interest rates. As far as the bond go, or the bond funds, we have to be careful with those because of arbitrage rules, so we can't invest too highly with those. All bond proceeds right now are in accounts that maximize the fullest potential for interest rates that we can without going over the arbitrage rules. So those ones, we have really maxed out what we can gain on them, and we'll continue to get the best interest rate because of that. But the CDs, especially the CPA funds, those ones we look at regularly. I think this one is a 9-month or a year. So when that comes back up, we go to all of our different vendors and try and get the best interest rates. But keeping an eye on those, but I don't want to lock up all of our funds in CDs. Yes, the interest rates are advantageous, but at the same time, we want to make sure we have liquid funds.
Do we ladder our CDs?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Do we need to approve this?
Yeah.
So we can have a motion to accept this?
We've done that in the past. I'll make a motion, we accept the 2024 third quarter Treasurer's Report.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? All right, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Erica.
Have a great night.
Yep. Okay, so the next thing we have is a intermunicipal agreement. We're looking at an agreement with Agawam for net metering, and this is an initiative that the town manager has been working on for the last few years. And so we're happy to see that this agreement is being brought forward. It's a benefit to us, and I'll turn it over to the town manager. She can explain how it's going to be helpful for ours.
Thank you. Yes, so this is something I've been talking about for a while. We have two net metering agreements, power purchase agreements. One of them we had made amendments to months ago, and that's a fairly straightforward one. It's with the town of Deerfield, and that we've already seen the benefit from adjusting by reduction in electricity charges at the library, most notably, and some other smaller accounts. I think the schools might have seen a little bit. But this agreement has been lingering for a while because working with Beth Greenblatt, who you had a presentation from a while ago, she had experience in another municipality in the eastern part of the state that allowed the net metering agreement to cash out the solar credits. So instead of applying them to your electric bill, you were able to accept a cash payment for them. And in situations like ours, where we were consuming more, we were purchasing more solar credits than we were consuming, it is a great solution for us. So Beth has been working on this with us, along with our town council and the town of Agawam. So this agreement here is our Tallinn Solar Agreement. We are the host community. Agawam is an off-taker of about 49%. And every month, what will happen is instead of it applying solar credits to our utility bill, it will send us a cash payment from Nugent, the solar company. We'll deposit a payment into a town deposit account. Town accounting here will do the allocation that's needed and cut a check to the town of Agawam for their portion. So we both are agreeing to cash out our solar credits. In order to do this, we need an intermunicipal agreement, which is just a standard agreement between municipalities, so that if any of us are not here, we have this agreement that dictates exactly what's supposed to happen. Agawam had this under review for quite a while, and they did finally sign it and send it back, and so now it's here with you guys. A couple things to note that I just want to bring up here, because I had some follow-up information, if I can get this to load. We will be amending our Schedule Z. So you see it says attached as Exhibit A. It's not attached right now. It's really not germane to this agreement, but it will get attached once it's updated. And looking for this section. Oh, so payment of funds. On page 4, you see this is what calls out how we're going to pay them, and it will be in accordance with the net metering agreement and our Schedule Z allocation. So that's just what tells the. I can't get this to load. Pull it up on.
You want to pull it up?
What do you want?
No, it's an email Beth and I were going back and forth about, and I just want to read you what she had said to me. Oh, I just asked for some examples if we knew what that 49% equated to in dollar amounts, just in case that question came up tonight. So 49.13% of the total generation is allocated to Agawam, with the balance to Longmeadow. The value of the net metering credit is solely determined by the current net metering rate under the Eversource rate schedule for that rate class. For example, if the net metering credit rate is 0.12 cent kilowatt hour and the asset generates a total of 5,274,100 kilowatt hours annually, the total payment from Eversource to Longmeadow would be approximately $633,000, and the approximate amount of the money that Longmeadow would pay Agawam is $310,000. Both Agawam and Longmeadow would be responsible to pay Nugent for its contracted amount. And then
Can you just, what you just said, say that and explain, we have to pay Nugent for our contracted amount? Can you just explain what that?
For what we have agreed to buy from them.
Right.
What we are committed to buying from them for our share of their solar. their solar generation.
Okay. Well, so you're saying we could cash out, and then will those funds be used specifically for, like, this payment and for other electrical sort of costs for the town?
Yeah, we will, they're not directed payments, meaning we don't have to, at least as I know right now, we don't have to commit them to something specific at the moment.
So it's flexible money in the overall budget?
Yes.
Okay, I can see the advantages of that. Okay. John?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of this. So we have a contract, we buy credits, we can't use all the credits?
Right.
Okay.
So, to explain it further, this has been a problem for many years. It really started when we switched from our high-pressure sodium streetlights to LED. All of the net metering credit purchases were being charged to that streetlight account because we were paying so much in utility costs to run those high-pressure sodium lights. So it wasn't an issue. Well, we switched to much lower demand energy with the LED streetlights, and instead of using those solar credits to pay down the utility bill, we were buying all these credits and not being able to apply them to anything. And so now we have about $800,000 in credits on a couple different utility accounts. Eversource, so it's a good problem to have, but it's also a big problem because it's not helping us right now. We need that money to be applied to our energy accounts, and you can redistribute those credits one time. Eversource lets you do it one time to a bunch of different other accounts. I didn't want to do that until we fixed this net metering agreement, because if we did that and we didn't have this agreement fixed, we were going to be in the same problem in 6 months, a year.
Okay.
And so now that we have this agreement that's going to fix our problem, I then can go work with Eversource to redistribute those credits to the numerous other accounts. The bulk share will probably be the school department because they're our biggest energy user, which will then see a reduction on our utility costs in FY25.
How much would this normally build up? What's the annual amount of credits, roughly?
Well, when we started this, we had when we became aware of this problem, I should say, we had $375,000 in credits.
And how long had it been?
A year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We spent, Josh, about $300,000 a year on about $400,000 a year in electricity on our streetlights. And we cut that by 3/4, something like that.
Yeah.
But we were still paying NewGen because we had these power purchase agreement with them. So we paid NewGen, and they put credits onto our bills, and the credits exceeded the amount of the bills.
Well, that was the other thing I was wondering about, because I'm thinking of my house. In the summer, I get a lot of solar power, and I build up credits, and so I essentially never get a bill, because in the winter, I'm using up my summer credits when electricity costs a lot more. Are we still utilizing our credits in that fashion, or is this only for excess? I'm sorry, is this only excess credits, or is it all credits that we're buying?
Can I try?
Yeah.
We're buying, the credits we have are credits on the account, and as Lynn said, we get one shot to redistribute those, because when you get a power purchase agreement, you have to put down, if you will, the meter number, or the bill number, so it goes against specific bills.
That's what we built up before.
So we built those up. In the future, we're not going to get any credits, we're going to get a cash payment. Okay, but in the credits that we built up, we now have to move those out of the accounts that have too much credit, so we get a one-time shot.
I understand that. I'm asking about going forward.
Going forward, we don't get any credits. We're getting cash.
We're using...
We have one agreement that we will still get credits for. You'll see that on the the library account, Council on Aging. It's some smaller accounts. It's not as big of an agreement as this one.
Okay.
That one we're going to continue to maintain. This one we are going to cash out.
Okay.
This agreement will stay in place for 25 years. And by all accounts, everyone is very happy with this potential setup.
Okay.
one other thing is that with having now removed this power purchase agreement from these and cashing it out, it makes available to the town other potential sources for low or renewable or low-cost electricity, because you can't buy more than you can use, but now we're not using these new gen credits. And so we can now go look at something like solar or for the town or municipal aggregation or whatever it is. But in the past, we had, it turns out we were buying more electricity than we were using for these accounts. Now we're buying, it's a better balance, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think I remember when you asked about what we're paying Nugent. Nugent cuts us a check. We have to then pay them for the credits that we've purchased. So it's like a weird, they cut us the check and then we cut them back the proceeds that are due to them.
And so, Lynn, these funds, like if we wanted to put solar on this building, could those funds be used in that capacity?
Potentially, I don't think, well, the funds could be used for any lawful municipal purpose.
Okay.
Whether it's solar on this building, I think the cost of that would exceed what we have for funding. And there's likely other avenues to fund something like that. Yeah, but this is hopefully going to be a really big benefit for us. And then certainly the redistributing those credits that are currently existing, that's going to help as well.
Two questions, Lynn. One is so when we redistribute the current credits, it will reduce our current and fiscal year 2025 electrical payments. Does that mean the budget will now actual will come in below budget on those accounts?
It should.
Okay. And the second thing is, and this is probably for Ian, how are we going to show this new gen revenue? Are you creating a new line item that is revenue from power purchase agreement, or is it going to be net of what we pay? In other words, how is this going to show so that we can see what we're accounting for?
I mean, you could do it both ways. In sense of simplest, I think would be netting it would be the simplest way, but we can certainly make our own line item to show the actual revenue received.
You're the CFO. You do how you make sense to you, but I think we need to show
both ways work. So I can show you guys both examples, and if one way is confusing, then we can.
I can't imagine we're going to have a preference.
No.
We just want to see it on the budget.
But that can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this something we can vote on tonight? Is that? I don't see the reason to wait. It sounds like. Okay.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
I think this was probably before my time, but how did we go about choosing the town of Agawam? I mean, I'm just like, were they willing to work with us, or is that
That was before my time too.
Okay.
I don't know.
So it was New Gen who came to actually it's Paul Pasturzik primarily, but I think I was involved in it a little bit. Was going out and saying, okay, we want to sign this power purchase agreement, and they said we have this much volume of electricity to use, and we said, well, we can only use part of it. Who do you know who can use more of it? And it really needs to be a municipality. So they kind of brought Agawam into the, into the group to do that.
And then the last question is, so if we're I think Lynn, you said we're the host community of the agreement. So are there any administrative costs or any negative costs that we have to incur based on this agreement?
No. No, it'll be just another account that they process monthly.
Okay.
Just one. Funds will go into a deposit account. Accounting will just cut a check every month.
Gotcha.
Just like paying a vendor.
Great.
All right.
So move we enter into a memorandum agreement between the city known as the town of Agawam and the town of Longmeadow for collection and payment of net metering payments.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second on that. No further discussion. We'll All those in favor? Okay. So there we go.
And I have an agreement here for you to sign tonight.
Okay.
Before you leave.
Everyone get your pens ready?
Think about this about 6 months later.
Okay.
To get $1 million in credits.
So the next item on the agenda is the opioid litigation. So as you know, the town has received funds due to opioid litigation because companies made a lot of money by over-medicating people, and a lot of people died from opiate addiction. And so they have now discovered there's 2 other companies that could be brought into this suit. And so Lynn is going to explain what we should do if we want to participate in this next step in terms of expanding so just, we're getting money already, and this would expand it if the litigation is successful with these 2 other companies that were making quite a bit of money.
Thanks. So we received a communication last week from the National Consortium that's representing all the government entities in the class action opioid lawsuits. And this is a ask about whether or not the town would confirm if we are in agreement to amend the complaint to add pharmacy benefit managers as to the lawsuit.
Okay, thank you.
And so, really, if the board can take a vote or not, I don't think it's going to have much bearing. We're one of hundreds of other fish in this pond. But I did want to bring it to you just in case you did want me to go on record.
I don't think there's any reason not to. We're adding on another potential defendant. And from reading the email, it seems like these are small potato middlemen, but, why not?
Yeah, $30 million, that's pretty small potatoes.
Yeah, among how many litigants?
Yeah. I don't know how other folks feel.
I'll make a motion, we approve the recommendation to expand our involvement with the opioid litigation.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
I have to
Opposed?
abstain, just I have a conflict.
Okay, conflicts of interest, so 1 abstention. But Lynn, in terms of the funds that we do get for this, from the opioid settlement, do we have a committee that involves parents who lost children or anything like that, or people who've been directly impacted by opioid use in town?
Not a town sponsored one. The closest would be probably the close community that works with the high school. The Board of Health has been the one directly overseeing uses of opioid settlement money.
Okay, all right. Because that's something, I don't know, but it would be good to have some people who are directly impacted. It's like if you look at making decisions that are going to have the best results, you want to include people who are going to be impacted the most. And so families that have been affected by opiate abuse, should be included in decisions, and I don't know if the health department can include them in some way, even as an advisory role.
Yeah, they're working right now on a community-wide survey that they're going to be distributing to get feedback from the community on ideas for how to use the funds. And then they will be bringing that information back to the Board of Health for discussion.
That's excellent. Thank you. All right, so in terms of, the next thing we have is a utility bill insert request, and hopefully you folks all saw that, that basically it's about battery disposal, and I learned something new about battery disposal. Yes.
Yeah, I was at the recent recycling committee meeting, and The reason this is brought up is because if the wrong batteries get into our trash disposal or trash system, it's potentially problematic. I'll put it that way. I mean, we've gone through situations where they've literally had to comb through the trash disposal to find certain items because there are sensors at Republic that look for things like this.
Okay.
And so it's important to the town that people be educated so that they keep things out of their trash that should not be in the trash. And that includes radioactive waste. Believe it or not, we've had a lot of that, and lithium ion and other batteries. So that's the reason this is before us, and that's the reason they're looking to communicate this more broadly to the people along that.
Okay. So people who have batteries that, are in the bad list, I know there's some places, I know like
The
the library.
I don't know if the library takes them anymore, but
They would take.
but the
hearing aid
DPW
back.
does do it. You can obviously go to the recycling center to do it. It used to be Car Hardware, they're not in business anymore, but essentially, you can take them to the DPW along with fluorescent light bulbs and other mercury-containing things like that, and they will address it. But you could also go down to the recycling center with them.
And it tells you that right here on the battery insert.
Right.
It says right on there, where to go take them. So, good. So we need to approve is there a motion to approve including this insert?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor? All right. And now we have a street closure application. We have the Friends of Store Library want to close Long Meadow Street east of the community house lot and to the east of the green in front of the community house for an event on Sunday, May 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is there a motion to approve this event?
So moved.
Okay.
Tom, can I?
Yes.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just not sure exactly what it is that they're requesting, because they say one thing in one place, and then we've got two applications which appear to be for the same date at the same place at the same time, and I'm just wondering. This is because it says the area in front of the community house.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's not necessarily in front of Storrs Library, but I just want to make.
I could provide clarity to that. So it's for a event going on at the library, and they're requesting additional parking in front of the community house. So they're requesting to close down that area between 10 and 3 so that they have those spots in front of the community house for their event if they need overflow parking. That's the request in its entirety.
Okay.
Oh, so
So
they're
it's
not
not for an
looking
event
for
on
it
the
for like
green.
a street action. They're looking for it for their own parking.
Yes.
It's kind of reserved. Oh, okay. That's
Yes.
clarifies.
And we had the police chief and the Parks and Recreation Director weigh in, and there was no conflicts on that date.
And the two applications, Mike?
I don't know what you mean by the two applications.
Well, there's a map here,
Oh, okay.
and then there's a request.
The map doesn't actually mark off where it's going to be, but.
Yeah, because the other end of it is it's a one-way anyway,
Yeah.
so they would ideally be looking to block off where it starts on Williams,
Where the red
and then
is.
utilize that for parking, and then once it's full,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
That's fine.
So do we have a motion to accept this closure?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We approve the street closure as requested by Storrs Library.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right. And the next thing we have is a one-day liquor license for St. Mary's Parish, application for a volunteer appreciation dinner. A social will be held on May 29th from 6 to 9 p.m. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move we approve the St. Mary's Parish event on May 29th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. And then we have a Knights of Columbus Council 50406, one-day liquor license for an event on June 6th from 6 to 9 at St. Mary's Parish. Is there a motion to approve this one-day liquor license?
I'll move we approve the June 8th, 2024 Knights of Columbus one-day liquor license application.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. All right, well, any comments on our correspondence that we've gotten? I mean, it looks pretty straightforward. And if there isn't any comments, then I guess we can look for, the next thing is, our next meeting is the 20th. I will not be in that meeting, and Josh, will you be chair?
It's my solemn duty, of course.
Yeah, no wiggle room, no wiggle room. No, yeah, I'm glad you'll be available. All right, so other than that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All those in favor? Okay, good night, thank you. We'll see you on the 20th, 7 o'clock.